Okay, we are now here with Miss Fatima Mann. How are you doing today, Fatima?
Good, how are you?
I am doing well. So we're going to talk about, like as we said, Sandy Bland, excuse me. We want to get a little bit about her story, get into a little bit about that.
Okay.
Talk about her story, a little bit personal for Miss Mann here.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Sandra Bland, right? So I don't want to talk about me without talking about her.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows the story, or they know a version of the story, because the Eurocentric media has their version of the story, and then there's the story that actually happened, in which we don't really know because they won't tell us. But Sandy was 28 years old. She's from Chicago. She was driving down to Prairie View University, which was her alma mater, to actually work as an outreach coordinator, I believe. And she was pulled over for not signaling, supposedly, and the officer was abrasive and he was aggressive and he was asking her questions, and she questioned him and she wanted to know why she had to get out and why was he stopping her, which is just plausible questions. He threatened her with a taser, ended up making her get out the car. She actually recorded it on her phone. And when she got out of the car, you can hear her, but you can't see her. There was two cars there, two cop cars. No one talks about the fact that there were two police officers actually there at the scene when she was outside the vehicle. Slams her head on the pavement. She lets him know that she's epileptic. He says, "Good." And then there's a bunch of other things that happen, right? So she gets locked up, and then for the weekend, and then lo and behold, on Monday she's dead. And they said that she killed herself, like she hung herself. So what the media has been saying and been talking about is the fact that she probably most likely than not committed suicide, and that was the story for a long time. And so what they did was they pulled her YouTube videos of her talking about PTSD and mental health issues, and they said that because she said those things, therefore she must have killed herself. I happened to go to Prairie View, and I happened to be there before while some national news got there, but the story has changed, right? So I've watched the story change from being in Prairie View, listening to the community, the people in Prairie View, listening to the fact that it was segregated in Waller County. So for example, if you were black, the black funeral home was called to come get a black body. If you're white, then a white funeral home was called to get a white body. But when Sandy died, the black funeral home was supposed to be called, but was never called, and a white funeral home came to get her. And so her cell phone still hasn't been given up or found at all, right? And which has her recording what's actually happening from her standpoint as Sandy. And then you have all these other things, right? So they found her supposedly standing. That was the first statement that was told when we were out there in Prairie View, that she was standing up against the partitioner. They never talked about her leaning over or her knees, being on the ground. And anyone knows if you're gonna hang yourself, you gotta take your feet from under you, right? Yeah. So there were all these things, and I think that what I love is the fact that for the people who live in that town, the people who were there the first week, from the first visual that they had at Hope AME Church until the visual we had in Austin, the story has it is done this over and over and over, and it's so funny because white people believe the story that they're watching on the news.
Right.
No one is talking about. So we can talk about the murder and her suicide. It's murder. I won't call it a suicide.
Right.
I won't call it a suicide because Sandy A could have been me, and B, nothing in my heart, in the universe, in God, Allah, whatever you believe in, is leading me to believe that she killed herself. And her mother doesn't believe that she killed herself. Her mother, people who know her, don't think that that's a possibility, right? And for the news to speculate, and for people who don't know her to speculate what could have happened, to me is I think it's insensitive. I think that when people make speculations as if they've known that person their entire life, and the people that have known them the entire life are like yes to this, but no to everything else. We want to believe what the media says. It says yes, and so because of Sandy, I'm here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Sandra Bland. I wouldn't feel the need to speak out on, I speak out all the time. But I'm going a little bit harder this time because it could have been me.
So how has this story affected you personally? Because she was a black woman, you're a black woman. How has this affected you personally?
Oh man, so Sandy's 28, I'm 28. In May, I think the week of May 12th, I actually drove from Texas to Connecticut by myself through, you know, those towns in Texas where you know that you need to not be in after dark, right? Because there's still towns in Texas, which that happens, and people still, like black people talk about it. White folks in those areas, no. But I drove through those towns. Most of us have drove through those towns. I'm a single parent. I was raised by a single mother. She was raised by a single mother. Her mother's name is Geneva. My middle name is Geneva. My great grandmother's name was Geneva. And my aunt's name was Geneva. Her story was just so much like mine, right? Like, so her social media, her videos, what she said in the videos. If you watch her videos and you read my post, they were like hand in hand, right? I'm not known to keep my mouth shut. I'm known to speak out on what I know is right. My grandfather used to say it's as good as God said it. And if I knew something was as good as God said it, there's no way that you could have convinced me otherwise. So Sandy just, everything about her screamed me. Like, I looked at a picture and I said, oh my goodness, this could have been me. So I've literally been doing everything I would want someone to do for me if it was me. I wouldn't want the world to see me as a criminal, to see me as someone who didn't add to society, or let's just back up. I would want society to see me as a person.
Right.
And all I want, and I think everyone wants, is first for people to just see Sandy as a person. Before you look at, because we've been talking about her suicide or whatever, but if you look at the fact of how she was arrested, right? Like, who deserves to be arrested like that? To be slammed up against the ground, to be told that, that you're epileptic and good, that your head hit the pavement. Who deserves to be talked to the way the officer talked to her? Like, no one. No one. If someone, it doesn't matter what race, economic background, no one deserves to be treated the way she was just during the arrest. So at first, I want people to see her as a person. Then I want people to see her as someone who actually was adding to society to make things better. Like, she actually was speaking out about different things. She was going back to work with the community, and community being her old college community. She was doing things, and to say that she was anything less than a person, which is what the media has done to her. Well, I'm sorry, this is what the media does to all black bodies when we're killed. They try to make us seem as if we're not people, and so I've just been fighting. We're going to get justice for Sandra Bland and everyone else. But while we do that, we also need to make sure that we change the narrative and that we don't allow Eurocentric media outlets to portray us in a manner in which we're not. Like, to talk about two things about a person as if those two things define all of them is what the media does, especially to black people. And they do it hard. So I'm just trying to make sure that her name doesn't go down without meaning something. Like, when the next time we say her name and the next time, we doing something, she's gonna get a day. Because there's no women holidays. Why not give it to Sandy Bland?
Right. So I understand that from your personal experience of this story, how's it affected you? You took your initiative to go down in Austin, Texas at the Capitol.
Yes.
And so we want to talk a little bit about that and hit on the next topic. Tell us exactly what you did, how you became that voice for Sandy Bland.
I was led to. There was things I was, if depending on whatever spiritual belief you follow, right? I grew up Christian, but I'm a practicing Buddhist. So you can say God, Allah, Buddha, the universe, the Orishas, like whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
The higher being is why I'm here. Like, this is why I'm doing this. I was led to. So I was literally supposed to be going to the visual because that's what you do. You go to visuals, unfortunately, for black people who've been dying at the hands of police. It's sad, but we go to visuals, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the visual. I got off the plane Saturday from a pre-law program. And then Sunday, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the visual. I woke up Sunday, and something said you have to pack a bag. I'm like, you have to stay. I don't know anyone in Prairie. I didn't know anyone in Prairie View. I had never been to Prairie View. I had no idea where I was staying and what I was going to do. But I knew that I needed to be there. And so I went. I went and I got to see the politicians try to make it seem like Texas isn't what it is. Oh, and by the way, like you had the lieutenant governor and the various, people show up after the visual, after people were gone, only when the cameras were there to try to comfort the family. When there were people, there was an actual event that would have comforted the family that they could have attended, but they didn't. They made sure that they were only seen in the back room and on camera. But anyway, I got to see it. Like, I got to be in the room. I got to watch things happen because I was there. I got to see, the sheriff and them, push back a media. What is it when you do the media things? Come on, I'm missing the word.
I think I'm missing it too.
When you call for a press conference.
Okay.
So they called. So Jamal Bryant came down to the press conference. Then the sheriff, they responded, right? So they pushed it back 2 hours. They streamed it live. What people saw were segments of it. So if you were there and you were watching it, you got to watch it live. I just got to see a lot. Like, I got to see a lot. I got to hear a lot from the people who live there, and for the people who've been doing the work in the community. And so this amazing man. His name is Judge Dwayne Charleston. He's the one that's been actually making sure that Sandy's name stays alive. He's been pushing it out of Prairie View. I said we want to do something, and he was like, "What do you think about doing?" I said, "I want to do a demonstration." He goes, "Do a visual, like do a candlelight visual," and I'm like, "We can do it." So Monday I started thinking about all the things we can do. So like how do we want it to structurally be looked? What do we want people to take away? How do we want people to march? It was me and three other Black women. I was the one like saying, "Hey, let's do this, let's try this, let's do that. Have you contacted this person?" Because I was in Prairie View. And so everything I had to do, like with Austin, I had to do with tangible conversations and picking up and reaching out. There was these amazing three sisters. Like, one just happens to be my partner, but like there was the other, like they just stepped in and we did work in 3 days.
Okay, so how do you feel the outcome of everything you put out? You had this story that touched you personally with Sandy Bland. How do you feel from what happened at the Capitol and the places you've been? How are they receiving it? Do you think they're receiving it as personal, as an impact, as what you want birthed out of everything that you believe that you want for her? As you say, you would like to have like a a name holiday like Martin Luther King or anything like that. How do you feel your impact is impacting the community? Because I think we personally, we should stand up for our rights way stronger than what we are. And set aside that as Black people alone, how we are viewed, we should stand up much more for our rights than what we're doing. So how do you think so far, out of everyone you've talked about about this topic, Sandy Bland, how do you feel they are taking this? Is it taking it serious, or how do you feel?
It's been amazing to listen to like Black people get it, right? Because I think Sandra Bland hit people in various ways. I think this was the first time that we saw a woman be killed and what that looked like, right? Like before she was killed, what happened with police officers and her interaction. And I think that Black people saw their mother, their sister, their wives, their daughters, and as Black women, we saw us, right? Like we know that, when sometimes we don't know how to keep our mouth shut, but we don't feel like we have to. I mean, we birthed the universe. Black women, we don't have to keep our mouth shut. And I think Sandy Bland, what it did for some people, she was relatable, right? Like she wasn't, some men didn't, relate to Eric Garner or the Fred Graves, and they didn't always relate to the Trayvon Martins, right? Because he could have not had a hoodie on, or he should have known better to not be doing X, Y, and Z, right? But what did Sandy do but talk back? Like, that's all she did. So when we marched to the steps of the Capitol. Everybody was asking me, "Are you gonna stop at the gates?" I said, "No. Sandy deserves to be on the steps. Her name needs to be on the steps of the Capitol of this state, not anywhere else." And people are receptive to listening now. Like, people were mad because I broke people up into racial groups for the march. I said, Black people should be up front. Latino people should be behind us. All other brown people should be behind them. And then white people should walk in the back.
Wow.
And we walk silently. And I missed our indigenous brothers and sisters, but I know they fell in because, of course, the oppression of the indigenous just as great. But we were there for Sandra Bland, and Sandra Bland was a black woman. And so for the first time, I wanted people to see that the oppressed people, we need to be up front at some point. Black people, we need to be up. We need for people to see that we're not always going to be behind and beneath and below. So for the first time, I wanted to make sure that people saw that we were up front and we were leading something. Like, we as black people were leading where everyone else goes. Because what people don't understand in this country, if black people can be treated as equals, everyone else can. See, because gays, we can get rights, we can get married. But just because gays can get married, it don't trickle down to us. See, like every other civil rights movement uses the black civil rights movement as an archetype to get their stuff done. We can't use anybody else's movement for an archetype. Black folks can't use the gay movement, they used ours. Every time somebody wants rights or they want something in this country, they usually mimic us and what we've done to try to be free. So for me, I'm like, let us lead. We have to be able to take care and lead our own people, right? We're not saying we don't need help from anyone else. We're not saying that we're anti anyone else. What we're saying is, at some point, it's okay for us to lead our own. We don't need anyone else to help us. We don't need other people to tell us how we should lead and how we should think and how we should interact with each other. We've been doing that for years. So when I had black people up front, I wanted us to see that that's where we belonged. And it was funny because a lot of black people had a problem with it. Some black people felt like, we shouldn't be segregated, as if I was segregating us. Because when we came together on the steps, we were all together. You can see the pictures. Everyone stood together. But when we walked, when we moved, the world needed to see that at least at one time, the oppressed black folks in this country was first. I mean, I think that Sandy would have been proud.
So we're going to just put this as a whole. This story has taken you to a very personal level, and you have some visions that you want birthed, and one of those visions is to make sure she has a marker like a Martin Luther King Day.
I would love to get her a holiday. That'd be like,
or a holiday.
So listen, this would be like the thing for me. If you said, if I died today, I don't want to die today, but if I died soon, I would want people to remember. If I was killed by the police tomorrow, I would want people to mourn me, but I would want them to continue her name. Because if they continued her name and got justice for her, then I know that I could get justice for me. So I believe that she deserves that. She does her name is going to do, the justice that her name is going to bring to a bunch of people. She should get a name for it. I mean, there hasn't been any other women that has a day. Like, you can go through your whole entire calendar. Christopher Columbus, the person who rediscovered a place that wasn't lost by raping and killing and pillaging, has a holiday. So why not, a black woman killed by white man get a holiday too?
So we have something to do. We have a job to do. So we want to talk about the interview you had with London.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
What was the topic and what was the main thing you hit on in the interview? So
it was Curvin. It was like World Jams was the name of the station, and they're actually out of London, and it was on Black Lives Matter. And as the umbrella, it was more of an intellectual debate. It was actually really good, because we were able to talk about how all lives matter is offensive because black lives don't matter, which is why we even had to have a hashtag and a movement to begin with. And so we discussed the fact that in order to even understand that all lives matter, then black people must be included in that all lives matter, and history dictates that we do not matter. So we can just look at the latter 3 months and how many black people have died. Or we can look at the fact that a white man could walk into a black church and shoot 9 people and not be in handcuffs. But if we talk back to the police, they throw us in handcuffs. Or they kill us. I'm sorry, they don't put us in handcuffs. They murder us. So if what we talked about was understanding, what we want as a people. We just want to be seen as people. Like, everybody says, you want access to life, liberty, and justice. I can't get any of those things if I'm dead.
Right.
And as a black person, we are dying. And we discuss what that looks like, and the fact that in this country, unfortunately, your skin color dictates whether you should live or die, and whether your life is important enough. And we can just run through we ran through the gamut. We talked about, in the various systems, how black folks make up, a lot of the health issues. Or let's just talk about prison. How many black bodies are in prison, men and women? How many prisons to pipeline little boys are there now? We can go down the list of how black lives don't matter. And the whole all lives matter thing is cute. It's cute, but it's offensive. Because if our lives mattered, we wouldn't be doing this. No one wants to be doing this. Let me be relatively clear. No one wants to have visuals for people who looks like them murdered by police officers. No one wants to know that if they get pulled over by a police officer looking like the way we look, that we might die. No one wants to live that way. All we want to do is live. And that's what we talked about. We talked about how we deserve to live. Like, we built this country. If anybody should be walking around snot, nose, and head up, it should be black and brown folks. There wouldn't be a White House for black folks because we built it. There wouldn't be any wealth in this country because slavery is the reason why this country even became rich in the first place. We can keep going. In Texas used to be a part of Mexico. Like, they took a whole people's land and then kicked them off and then decided that they actually wanted to keep slaves for an extra 2 years. So not only did you take the Latino people's land and then tell them that they couldn't stay there, but then you kept slaves for an extra 2 years and then said that we were supposed to be okay with it. I just don't understand. So we just talked about all this. We talked about the fact that, like, people want to talk about the need for a Black Lives Matter movement. And I just talked to them about history and then asked them, do they think that there's a need for a Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, it seems like we are in an era right now. We're living in an era. We have a black president. We have a lot of responsibility as blacks to engage as a community. We were watching your video, a little clip of telling the people to connect and to engage, get out of yourself, get around, meet someone, become a community. We are not a community, so to speak, quote unquote. We just live next door to one another. We are just living lives and kind of just going on our daily lives. So we are in an era where we can seek change, and I believe you are going to law school. You're going to be heading out pretty soon. When are you exactly leaving?
To go to law school?
Yes.
Monday, but I'm leaving Austin to go to Prairie View, and then from Prairie View I'll be going to law school. Yeah,
so it seems like this story has catapulted you, not to just be a voice for Sandy, but as a whole, you have a pretty good heart, and I just want to encourage you, to do all that you feel like you're called to do, not just for this, but it seems like this is a very important thing to your heart that's going to birth many other things for the future.
Yeah, it's important because it could have been me. Like, I can go and intellectualize it, and I can speak from a logical standpoint. It could have been me, and so we're gonna write every U.S. senator, every representative, every Texas representative, every Texas state representative until August 26th. Because she's going to be remembered longer than 30 days, but all I needed is 30 days. All I needed was 30 days to make sure that people know her story, not the story that the media is telling you and all other stuff. I know we will have justice for her and everyone else. And justice, just in case people don't understand what this looks like, because people ask, right, what does justice look like? This is for you, for those who ask. Justice is when an alleged crime happens and a police officer is called or is in an interaction with someone that an alleged crime happened. That person, if they have committed said crime or the police officer feels like the crime has been committed, what should happen? This is what justice is. That person their Miranda rights should be read. They should be put in handcuffs. They should be brought to a cell gone through the arraignment process, whatever that process is, because I've never been arraigned, so I don't know what that looks like. They should be able to call their attorney. They should have, if there needs to be a bail, they should be able to have a bail. And if there needs to be a trial, then they should have a trial. But they should be able to live. Justice is living, to be able to make sure that the process actually happens. Now, we all know that the system is all screwed up, but we're not going to talk, that's not the issue right now. The issue right now is that we are dying. We are dying. And we can't even get handcuffs before we die. But the white people, the white men who can shoot up schools and movie theaters and churches. We weren't at a club. These 9 people weren't at a club. They weren't somewhere that they shouldn't have been. They were at Bible study when a white man walked in and released havoc. And you know what the news and the judge talked about? He talked about him and his family and how much him and his family must be going through right now. Who cares? 9 people have lost their lives. You know what the family did of those 9 people? They forgave him. But you know what his family didn't do? I didn't see his family get on the news talking about, you know, how bad they felt that their son took 9 lives. I didn't hear the judge talk about how bad the judge felt that 9 people lost their lives and 9 families lost loved ones. Justice, for us, looks like our lives actually meaning something. It means that 9 people are no longer here just because they're black. It means that there's hundreds of people dying just because they're black. So, justice, like seriously, on the basic level of humanity, is just allowing us to live to see the day that we might be able to sit in front of a jury of our peers. It's for us to be able to live to say, hey, I got to call my attorney. They didn't kill me. I may have committed a crime, but they didn't kill me. They didn't kill me. We are dying for alleged crimes. Not even, crimes that we know was committed. Because how many white men are sitting on death row right now? How many white men are actually put to death? How many white men kill black or brown people, whether they're policemen or not, kill black or brown people, and you see their pictures of them in the media with handcuffs, not their mugshots, with handcuffs. I want to see a white man that kill and pillage and destroy. I just want to see him in handcuffs with police officers around him. That's not too much. That's not what this country wasn't built on. It was built on that. We just wanted to do the same for us like they do for white folks.
All right, well, we thank you for your time today, Miss Mann.
Thank you.
And this is a very, very impacting, powerful story, and Sandy Bland will never be forgotten, and you're making sure that she will never be forgotten.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to follow you. We want to make sure we know how to contact you, how to reach you. So just tell us where to reach you and how to keep in contact for all the people that are viewing this story and that want to follow you and other things you're getting ready to do.
Okay, so my Facebook is Fatima so Lsdfg. So that's Lost Souls. That's destined for greatness, but that's the acronym for my middle name, and it's Mann. So it's Fatima Lsdfg Mann, Facebook. Fatima the Poet on Twitter. Those are really the 2 sites that I use in terms of what I'm doing for Sandy Bland and everything else. I blog from time to time, but of course that's posted on Facebook as well. But my Tumblr is Black, Barefoot, and Aware, because I walk barefoot. And that's it. I think that's pretty much what I'm on right now.
Well, again, thank you for letting us have you in today.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate the story, and we definitely want to make sure she is remembered in the proper way.